لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
قال نوح لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
قال نوحي لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
قال نوح لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة بالرسم جمل تلوحي وكل حين نغرى
للوحي.
يا بروق السعد لوحي يتمنا وجد على لوحي. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة لوحي يا سمح بشرفا زيق وغاتم
الظرافة.
إن لقيت ناسا حرافا نغتنم من نعم الصرافة. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
شغل طبقت ما في مثله حين نكون جماعة
نتلو.
شوف عظمت في قولي واتلوه والعجب في القلب شتله. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة بالعجبنا يزيد طربنا بالعلم
نحيي عظمنا.
يد نصلح ما خربنا والإله فرج كربنا. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة الحوار ذكاكو صادرا
الظلم ما شكاه.
حين تغنى وزاد بكاكو مل ليس عنه وكاكو. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة الحوار لنفسه جرد عن
شواغل
شواغل
وسبع والله.
تارك الحر والمبرد والعدد جرد وفرد. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة الحوار لنفسه جرد عن
شواغل
شواغل
وسبع والله.
تارك الحر والمبرد والعدد جرد وفرد. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
يا فقير صبرك ومهلك بالعلم
ترفع لله.
بالإله أحيا وأهلك بالصبر راد إنك أهلك. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
لا حمد فيك وشكرا مدخر
ليوم بكرة.
كم شفانا وصف عكرا ونكتب اليوم نقرا بكرة. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة لا حمد فيك وشكرا مدخر
يوم بكرة.
كم شفانا وصف عكرا نكتب اليوم نقرا بكرة. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
فيه الطرف فيه النشاوى كم صدع
صدعنا والغشاوى.
يجلي فمك غير شاوى يزيد ما قالوا شاوى. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
فيه الطرف فيه النشاوى كم صدع
صدعنا والغشاوى.
أيوة يجلي فمك غير شاوى يزيد ما قالوا شاوى. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
شيخنا شايل صوت ودور في التلف
ليلة متور.
أيوة يسمع الدارس مطور والجديد لإخوانه حور. قال
نوحي لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة شيخنا شايل صوت ودور في التلف
ليلة متور.
أيوة يسمع الدارس مطور والجديد لإخوانه حور. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة جبنا للشاكي وسهرنا نجتهد
في كل دهرنا.
في حصن كذب القهرنا كالشمس طالع شهرنا. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
أيوة جبنا للشاكي وسهرنا نجتهد
في كل دهرنا.
في حصن كذب القهرنا كالشمس طالع شهرنا. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
نجتمع كل يوم فرحة نبتسم
نعم الصراحة.
أيوة الخميس والجمعة راحة ونلتفت للغد راحة. قال نوحي
لأحي روحي متى العشاء نعرض للوحي.
نجتمع كل يوم فرحة ونبتسم
نعم الصراحة.
Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed Abu-Ezza 1926-2021. Keeping on presenting and introducing Sudanese Sufism and Sufi orders as well as the notable Sufi shuyukhs. It is my pleasure this morning to present another influential figures that specialize and for more than 70 years in the teaching of the Quran. So Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed, known as Abu-Ezza, is the topic of our episode today. But before exploring and navigating into his story life and his contribution and the legacy that he has left following his passing away in 2021, it is better to introduce some notes about the Khalawi, or better known as the Quranic school in Sudan. Since our personality is a teacher of the Holy Quran, and we have taken him as an example to a notable well-known Sudanese Sufi teacher of the Quran. So he is an exceptional figure that served Islam and Muslim of Sudan for more than 70 years. However, I would like here to share you some notes about the Quranic school or the Khalawi in Sudan. During their development and spread, Sufi orders erected Islamic centers for learning and the dissemination of the Quran in most of Sudanese villages and towns. Each tariqa established its mosque, zawiya, and khalwa. The mosque was for prayers, the zawiya for their gathering and the performance of their rites, while the khalwa is for the young to learn the Quran as well as the Islamic teachings. Much of the northern Sudan has a long tradition of Islamic teaching and learning at the masjid, khalwa, and zawiya. These were seldom centrally controlled or organized, but mostly rooted in a local setting where there was teacher and an accessible shady place to gather. There were many such places of learning, and Sufi Turuq played a key role in their growth and continuation in the growth of the learning places, mainly the Quranic Khalawis. The Sufi Turuq were closely linked to the Khalwa, and as Ali Saleh Karrar in his study Sufi Brotherhood of Sudan 1992 has put it, the most important tariqa-linked institution was the Khalwa or the Quranic school. However, many theses, many studies have been carried out and have been conducted handling the history and the development as well as the educational system that followed in these Quranic schools. For example, the researcher Abush maintained that the era of the Sinar kingdom had seen an unprecedented turn in the language and culture when the Sufi mystic shuyukh with the Khalawis and the schools they launched had managed to disseminate Islam and Arabic language in the Sinar kingdom and its contemporary kingdoms. The existence of the Sufis among the public and their participation in the daily functions of the society, solving problems and mixing with the people, had helped them to become an integral part of the society life and thinking. After the spread of Islam in northern and central Sudan in the 16th century, education in general followed the traditional Islamic model represented by the Khalwa. The Khalwa is the traditional type of school that has no age limits for enrollment of students. So Khalwa as a Quranic school and as educational institution, by the way, had been appeared for the first time during the Fong Sultanate. And from that time on, it has played great role in raising the awareness of the Islamic teaching, mainly the dissemination of the Holy Quran. The Halawi remained in Sudan one of the largest religious institutions that contributed to the spreading of Islam and receiving the Quran, as well as teaching the principles of reading and writing. The Halawi is an integrated educational institution linked to Sufism, whose students extend beyond the boundaries of tribal and regional barriers to students from all over Sudan and from neighboring countries. Sudanese Muslims have used several terms to refer to the institution of religious schooling, which I call here the Quranic school, terms which are still in common use. The first term, Khalwa, plural of Khalawi, is derived from the verb ikhtala in Arabic language to indicate or to stand for the meaning to seek seclusion or privacy, as in the Sufi Brotherhood. This usage reflects the linkage between the basic institutions of religious instruction that the Sufi schools who first brought Islam and Arabic literacy into the Sudan, into the religion. So as we have stated, the Khalwa, by the way, in Sudan dates back to hundreds of years and was extended during the time of Sheikh al-Manjuluk, to whom attributed the inauguration and the opening of the first Khalwa in Sudan. And then the Khalawis from that time on started to spread, including to cover all parts of the country. So just here, I would like to state part of these famous Khalawis. The most Khalawis, or the Halwas of the Quranic school across the country, are the following. The Khalwa and the Khalawi of the son of Jabir, Awlad Jabir, that is, in addition to Khalawi of Al-Qubush in the northern part of Sudan, mainly in Berber district. Khalawi Hamash Kurib in eastern Sudan have been founded by Sheikh Ali Bitai, very famous and notable Sudanese teacher of the Quran. Khalawi with Al-Fadni, another very ancient Khalwa in central of Sudan, has been founded by Sheikh Ali Al-Fadni. Khalawi Umban, that is attributed to my master Sheikh Al-Abid with Badur. And by the way, this is very influential, very famous Khalwa in Sudan. It is in the East Nile near Khartoum. Khalawi with Dolib in Kordofan, and Khalawi Al-Fashir. And by the way, here in Western Sudan, there are large Khalawis scattered down or scattered out throughout the cities and the village in west of Sudan. In addition to the Khalawi and the Khalwa of Sheikh Abu-Ezza, that is in Kordofan also. As we have stated in our introduction to this episode, our focus in this documentary is Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed Abu-Ezza, and behind him we would like to see his legacy as a notable, famous, influential Quranic teacher. So who is Abu-Ezza? His full name is Sheikh Muhammad Ahmed Abul Hassan Abdullah. Abu-Ezza is a nickname from his mother's grandfather, for he has a daughter with the name of Ezza. He was born in 1926 at the village of Ushara, which is located in the north of Kordofan, between the towns of Rawaba and Tindilti. His religious education. Sheikh Abu-Ezza had received the religious sciences under many notable scholars inside the Sudan. After he completed the memorization of the Quran under Sheikh Abdullah Wad al-Abbas to the study following with the study of the prophetic seerah and the legal sciences. In 18 years, he returned to his village and his homeland at Ashur and eventually went on establishing limited khalwa for the memorization of the Holy Quran. Shortly, he soon traveled to Hijaz to perform Hajj and the visitation of the Messenger of Allah. Afterwards, he returned to Sudan to spend 8 years in studying the science of fiqh under the faqih of his own time, Sheikh Ali Adham, who granted him ijazah in Maliki fiqh. Furthermore, he accompanied Sheikh Sufyan, nicknamed the Thawri of Kurdufan, and also has awarded from him he has awarded him ijazah authorization in Islamic sciences. In addition to that, he also studied under Sheikh Usman Manga al-Shingiti at Shirkela, west of Rawaba. He studied under him the book of Al-Ashmawi, the famous Maliki book on fiqh, and had been given also an authorization or ijazah. It was narrated that Sheikh Ali Adham, his first teacher in the Islamic sciences, didn't begin his science session until his student Abu-Ezza, who had been with him for 8 years, was present. When the students of the Circle of Knowledge asked why they had to wait for Sheikh Abu-Ezza to start the lesson, Sheikh Ali Adham replied that the blessings and the lights in his presence triggered the lesson's issues to descend upon me as if I were reading them from a written tablet. Sufi Sanad. Sheikh Abu-Ezza has been authorized on the Sammaniya as scarce supplication and guidance on what pleases Allah and His Messenger under Sheikh Abdullah Sheikh Ibrahim, better known with Wad al-Abbas of Vedan village. So he is Sammani Sheikh through Sheikh Abdullah Wad al-Abbas, who actually is a student of Sheikh Haj Wad al-Maza of the Yaqub clan. Thus, Abu-Ezza initiated the interested students and murid on the line of the Sammaniya. The establishment of the Khalwa. As the case of the many Sudanese villages and cities which were based on the establishment on the Sufis, Ashur emerged as unique in a way that it comes to be linked directly with the memorization of the Quran. In the words of Sheikh Al-Jaili Al-Hafiyan, the Sammani center of Tabat late Khalifa, Ashur attained an entire village of Quran runs and supervised by this pious man in the way of taking the path of returning to Allah. Then the sincere and committed young Abu-Ezza had started his vital religious mission amid those rugged sand dunes in 1947. So the Khalwa, the time of its establishment and its history, back to 1947. Sheikh Abu-Ezza had endured the difficulty of the hottest summer sun and the coldest winter nights for 77 continuous years, spent in teaching and the dissemination of the Holy Quran and Islamic teachings, while adhering to whatever had the advantage of serving his project. He had become disconnected from anything that stood in the way of doing so. Every one of his wonderful steps has been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as time went on, his khalwa evolved into a remarkable organization and continues to make a significant contribution to the Sudanese society by producing thousands of Quran memorization graduates and fuqaha. The most recent statistic, that is in 2013, For the student enrolled in the Khalwa is 6,000, while the daily floor ration for birthday meals is 5 to 6 sacks of durra. So after 18 years of purification, scientific and educational preparation, Sheikh Abu-Ezza had been authorized by his Sheikh Ud al-Abbas to open his own khalwa at his own village. The decree of its inauguration from his Sheikh Ud al-Abbas was not included. The budget, salaries, buildings, allowances, as the case with the governments and organizations during the opening of new institutions. However, the idea of the setting up of such an institution to Sufis included two important matters. The first one is taking the Sufi pledge or bay'ah, posed to a period of spiritual, scientific, and practical preparation. And the second is a brief, concise will or wasiyah. Its fundamental principles are: open your khalwa, put your trust in Allah, and fear Allah while benefiting the creature for the sake of the Creator, and placing your trust on Allah alone, and commit your litany and don't get worried. In a very concise way, the will state: open your masjid and wait for the help of your master. الله. افتح مسجدك وانتظر مساعدة سيدك. The educational system and the khalwa from inside. In 2014, during my field journey to gather data to my study on the Samaniya, I interviewed Sheikh Abdullah Abu-Ezza, the son of the Sheikh, and the man on charge of the Khalifa now, 2024. I interviewed him, and out of my speech with him, he said, it could be pointed out that the education system or the educational system inside the Khalwa differs from that one of the formal schooling in the way that each student stands as well represent his own path. For example, if 10 students have enrolled on a very same day, then everyone may come to graduate on a date different from those study mate. One may come to memorize in 2 years, another may take 5 years, another one may need 8 years to memorize the full holy book. There are now more than 6,000 students in the Khalwa. They live in a very one place called the Masjid. They're surrounded with a huge fence. Inside there is the mosque, which was constructed from the local materials of dry grass and trees, woods. And then in 1965, it has been rebuilt with the red bricks. Beside the mosque is the taqi, where the food and drinks is prepared, in addition to a multi-housing guests, which are well furnished, included inside all features of modernity. Moreover, and inside this large, beautiful, sandy soil place is the Al-Qur'aniyya, the place where the Quran is taught, besides the Tugaba, in which the fire is light as a source of giving light for the student to read mainly after the sunset. It come to be called the Tugaba, which is consists, by the way, it is a spot in which woods used to be gathered, and then it gives light, by the way, in the evenings, in addition to the students' housing and the floor mill. Religious teaching philosophy. In the very same interview, Sheikh Abdullah went on informing me about the philosophy of Abu-Ezza educational way when he said, the Sheikh spent his blessed age inside the masjid, for he has never left it since 1967, only in the necessity. He personally initiates the teaching of the Maliki books of fiqh. However, the Ashmawi, Al-Akhdari, Al-Sifti, Al-Risala, Muqtasar of Khalil, Risalat of Abi Zayd al-Qirawani, in addition to Muqtasar of Khalil, moreover, adding to the book of Ibn Ashir, which includes Tawheed, Fiqh and Tasawwuf, were the books that used to be taught in the center. And the Sheikh personally initiate the teachings of these materials. The students are recommended to memorize the Quran by heart. And that is the main reason behind, by the way, their presence inside the Khalwa. In addition to that, they also were recommended to memorize by heart the 40 Nawawi Hadith. In addition to Ibn Ashir, also used to be memorized by the student, and it is recommended to be memorized by a teacher. The Maliki Mazhab is the only Mazhab that is practiced inside the Khalwa. The teaching sessions always started at 10 o'clock a.m. and ends at 11. The students who memorize the Quran are only allowed to attend these lessons. According to the Sheikh philosophy, the student should first and foremost come to occupy himself. The student should come to occupy himself with the memorization of the Quran. That is because the Quran is the asl, or is the origin of all the sciences, while the other disciplines of knowledge are branches. Thus, the student must first focuses on the asl, on the origin, and then goes to the branch. Abu-Ezza doctrine. Sheikh Abu-Ezza doctrine is that of the righteous predecessors. He was an example of the ascetic, God-fearing man, an outstanding figure, an embodiment of patience, forbearance, humility, generous, a man of patience. Good example to the students, a model that to be followed. The visitor will find difficulty to recognize him, for you find him always, all the time, engaged in the service with his students. You find him in the taqi, for example, bare feet and uncovered head, wrapped his waist with his tawb. He is a man of mercy, leniency to the students, devoted all his time for the teachings of his students at the Khalwa, dedicated his entire life to the spreading of the word of Allah, using the teachings of the Quran and the prophetic Sunnah as his medium. He lived for the greater purposes throughout his life, embodying the lifestyle of the religious that is characterized, lifestyle of the righteous that is characterized by austerity, asceticism, and wara. He lived a simple life down to his basic eating and dressing habits. He never wore luxurious clothes and served as a role model for the humble, given a noble man. He never laid on a bed with a mattress. Instead, he chose to lie on the ground. Another evidence of his humility was the way he would share his food with other eaters. Always stay away from the cameras and lights. His famous limited pictures taken from him by surprise is aesthetic in the appearance, and his first enemy is cameras. Escapes them in disguise and put down his dress on him and lower his head. One of these rare images spread is his nap amidst the students' dinnerware, standing by himself, participating in its preparation and making sure that all students eat their meals. And when he makes sure that they all have eaten the dinner's meal, he carries pots of authentic Kordofan sesame oil with his hands in the cold winter to rub the bodies of young students with it. And he refuses carrying out this task, but he alone. He refused anyone to share him this task, saying that these children are God's deposit with us and the trust of their parents. While in the daytime, he himself shaves their hair, rub it with luxurious incenses that lovers and visitors bring him. All of this happened despite the presence and availability of those who could carry out this task. The Sheikh continued what had already started in his views of serving the students himself. When I visited his center in 2014, he was in later stages of his 80s at that time. As a result, the Sheikh continued serving the pupils himself, continuing a tradition he had established in his youth. This was a commitment that he had made to himself. His lifetime brother, Sheikh Abdurrahim al-Bur'i, said about him, Sheikh Abu-Ezza perfected his cultivation, takes care of his subjects himself, and they go out as he likes, while others ask some other person to participate in the care of their subjects. Abu-Ezza does not sleep except on the ground directly often, and the luxury of beds is almost nothing but a homemade bed that almost touches the ground. His son Sheikh Abdullah told us that in the days of his last illness, he tried to convince him to sleep on a modest bed with a light quilt on it. He replied, "My son, whoever sleeps on the bed and puts mattresses, sheets and pillows on it, for this does not intend to stay up at night to perform dhikr." He ate a little coarse food as well as his clothing, but he is a crowned king over the hearts of millions. He never talks about himself, and when anyone dared to ask him about the karama that happened to him, he said, "I have no privacy." And here came the response from one of his knowledgeable students, "Are you looking for a miracle for my Sheikh?" I told you, he missed not the takbir of ihram, the beginning of prayer in this mosque for 70 years.
مشرفات وسمي فاخر ينفعني درهن في اليوم الآخر مواهن مساخر حوانا مفاخر ينفعني درهن في اليوم الآخر شحنا بواخر في البحر الزاخر ينفعني درهن في اليوم الآخر إبلي المشرفات واسمي فاخر ينفعني درهن في اليوم الآخر هي إبلا ذينا في المحفل ذينا ينفعني درهن في اليوم الآخر عجائلات خزينة وللفايزين ينفعني درهن في اليوم الآخر إبلي المشرفات وثمين درهم في اليوم الآخر يا باهن من سوق جنبول ولا من عيال شمول ينفعني درهم في اليوم الآخر أراعيهن يوت مقبول ستر الله عليه مسبول ينفعني درهم.
The biggest khalwa in Sudan, the Islamic world. The Khalwa of Sheikh Abu-Ezza was one of the biggest Quranic schools in Africa and the Middle East. The Sheikh struggled with the harshness and difficulty of life there in the 1940s. The villages in that part of Sudan were dispersed and far apart, and the only available mode of transportation was donkeys. The lives in the isolated countryside were challenging, though, despite the difficulties in their lives, men with Abu-Ezza level of strength and resolve were never stopped by them. In order to start the foundation of one of the future most renowned Quranic schools in Africa and in the Islamic world, the Sheikh had gathered the woods and grass. He began instructing the village children, and it was reported that the number did not go over 5, and soon after, the number of students grew day by day. Nearly more than 6,000 students coming from different places and from different ages were housed in the modest student residence inside the Khalwa. But despite this larger number, it was incredibly quiet, calm, and disciplined. The Sheikh Abdullah, the founder of the Tariqa, son of the Khalwa son, said that despite getting older, his father, who died in 2021, continued to stand by the pupil and guest needs for food and tea from sunrise to sunset every day. Another witness and a visitor to the center in 2014, I came myself to be realized with these facts. The Khalwa financing. The Khalwa's source of funding come from a variety of places. There are different sources. The Khalwa won a sizable plot of land close to the village, and the Sheikh and his son Abdullah are in charge of using it for sesame cultivation during the rainy season. Donations also come from charitable people who traveled from all over the country, as well as from the relatives and parents of the Khalwa's students. This gives either goods or money, depending on the type, while they only asking and waiting the Sheikh dua or supplication. Those visitors and donors compete in giving and donating to the Khalwa. The little child arrives at the Khalwa knowing nothing and unable to read or write, so that after a period of time spent in the Khalwa, whether it be bigger or shorter years, he graduates as a school memorizer and possessor of life knowledge and job. Once again, I would like to say and repeat: the Khalwa students' accommodation depends on itself in all aspects of its varied task. They are huge lands of farming on both two levels of farming, the traditional farming system and the mechanical one. The senior students, mainly the memorizers of the Quran, were allowed to rent a portion of land from the local inhabitants. So an individual rent muhammas, a portion of land to be cultivated, as they call it there, and cultivate that portion of land with sesame. So when harvesting the crop is sold, and this helped the students to satisfy mainly the memorizers of the book, to satisfy their needs of clothing and buying the fiqh book, which were taught at the Khalwa. This word, by the way, it has been informed and told by a student that I interviewed during my visit to them in 2014. Abu-Ezza and politics. Following his story life, Sheikh Abu-Ezza only priority and concern is his student of the Khalwa. No doubt if he stood aloof from politics and politicians, they do not stand aloof from him. So the social reform on his own way, politicians are not always on his door seeking the support. So he used to be visited from all level of men in ruling. However, when visited by head of state or the rulers of Kordofan or the ministers of Khartoum or the notables of society and the people of money, it is enough to greet them and then leave directly to impress his students again. And his biggest concern is not to be caught by a camera lens that ignores the moment he shakes hand with the guest. His son Sheikh Abdullah, as well as the family members, as well as the outstanding figures in the masjid, shall be in charge of welcoming and sitting with the visitors, from president of the state to any other visitor. He always tried to keep away from politics and politicians, as well as the men of wealth. He took a clever stance since he believed that a scholar is best off keeping himself apart from the ruling class. He considers those men of ruling and wealth like the other ordinary people. The writer Muhammad Khair Awadullah narrated an incident that during a visit to President al-Bashir to Kordofan, he paid the visit to the Sheikh at his own center, at Ushara. The daily schedule at his Khalwa remained as usual. The Sheikh schedule at his own Khalwa with his student remained as usual, despite that the president in his visit, and the Sheikh kept up his purpose of guiding his students as they learn the Quran. While he was in the Qur'aniya, the place where a student gathered to be taught the Quran, a man approached him and said, "My master, the president," informing him that the president was there in his masjid and Khalwa. A man came to him again while he was in his very same place in the Qur'aniya with his students. "My master, the president and the governor and the delegations are in yours waiting." The Sheikh answered, so serious. The Sheikh answer was so serious. "Still, we have a lot to do. If they have patience to wait, give them the hospitality. If not, they may leave." The delegation, the governor, and the president were compelled to alter their own plans rather than the Sheikh. This is just indicate that the Sheikh has no other concern nor care, only his students, that who considers them are deposit from God, and at the same time they are trust from their parents that have been handed to him to educate them, to learn them, to have and to instill in them the good behavior and manners. The significant festival and the famous annual visit. Throughout the history of the Halwa, one of the remarkable festivals inside the center, which held annually, is the graduation ceremony of the memorization of the Holy Quran. A lot of people come to witness this great occasion. Officials from government as well as of the Sufi Shuyukh, in addition to the parents of the students under the festival, celebration. Use all of these figures used to attend the ceremony. Also, and from ancient time, one of the remarkable and regular visit that by the Sheikh Abu-Ezza and his students following the end of the agricultural harvest season is their annual visit to the center of the Yaqubab, mainly the Masjid of Sheikh Atom Wad Banaga. And as we have stated, that Sheikh Atom Wad Banaga is the guide and the Sheikh of Abu-Ezza, and through his grandson, through the grandson of a Sheikh Tom, that is Sheikh Hajwat al-Masi. By the way, Sheikh Hajwat al-Masi is a teacher of a Sheikh Abdullah Wad al-Abbas, who in turn is the direct Sheikh of Abu-Ezza. So Sheikh Abu-Ezza with his students from very ancient time used to pay an annual visit to that famous center of the Samanis. In addition to other visit is that one which always happen at the third day of Eid to the center of his Sheikh, his direct Sheikh, that is a Sheikh Abdullah Wad al-Abbas at the village of Zaidan. Poetry on the praising of the Quran. As has been said in literature teaching and learning, poetry achieves a variety of functions. It can serve as a means of self-expression, a description of the beauty of the world, amusement, or even as tool of teaching. Poetry is used here in this Quranic center. It used to teach the Quran as well as transmitting Islamic values. Being a witness, I attended a Sufi of Zikr, a Sufi circle of Dhikr, where the tambourine and drum are employed. The poetry performed in this session or in this circle of Dhikr mainly focus on the language and culture of the memorization of the Holy Quran. So this collection of poems was used and utilized in the Sufi on the circle of Dhikr is written by Sheikh Abdullah, the older son of Sheikh Abu-Ezza, while its central themes represented in the beauty, reflecting the beauty of the Quran, life in the Khalwa, its literature, culture, and terminologies. At the end of this episode, I would like to restate that throughout our life, we always find shining exemplars of selfless servitude, dedication, and commitment to a cause greater than themselves. People whose legacy of goodness remains long after they have departed from this world and their own hands no longer toil. These individuals continue to have an impact on the world long after they left our temporal existence, because they lived and breathed the values they committed to. Among those who are the influential Quranic teacher that we explored a glimpse of his story life with the teaching of the Quran, our Shaykh, the perfect aesthetic teacher, Muhammad Ahmed Abu-Ezza. Thus, if the great miracle of Sheikh al-Burai was in his poetry production as we described in the episode that we presented to him, then Sheikh Abu-Ezza's miracle is in the countless memorizers of the glorious Quran who are dispersed and scattered across the entire country. He is a mujahid with the true sense of the word meaning, and his fight followed the jihad of the wooden slate and pen, following a life filled with accomplishment and moral actions. Sheikh Abu-Ezza died in 2021 and was buried at Ushara, the location of his Quranic school. Sheikh Abdullah, his son, succeeded him.
شحن بواخر في البحر الذاخر ينفعني درهن في اليوم الآخر إبلي المشرفات واسم فاخر ينفعني درهن